I don't think it's going to build quite yet. The reason being is the value of those heifer calves that need to be retained to start building the herd. They're worth so much at the local auction that the producers are enjoying the fruits of their labors and just cashing them in and taking that cash and doing something else with it.
So how are margins today for the beef cattle ranchers? Are they better than they were 3-4 years ago? I mean, what I'm trying to get at is there the incentive for them to expand?
There is. You're hearing less complaining now from your average beef cattle producer.
Okay, that's good news.
Than you did back then. And so
Yeah.
you're right. We're sitting on record high prices, nearly all classes of cattle, and it's hard to complain about too many things right now. But our grain prices are moderate as well, and so feed prices have been fairly moderate as well. But fertilizer prices are still very high, and it depends on what type of operation of what your local inputs are.
Welcome to Farm to Fork the Innovators. I'm David Maloney, president of Datum FS. With over 40 years in the food supply chain, we explore the stories and strategies transforming how we produce and serve food. Our guest innovator today is Aaron Cooper, a seasoned cattle expert and rancher with Cooper family Akaushi. In this episode, we explore an insider's look at the cattle industry, including its biggest challenges, the current state of the market and when we can expect cattle herd expansion, innovations driving change in the cattle industry, and how premium products like Wagyu Akaushi are reaching consumers. So buckle up, hit that subscribe button, and let's harvest progress together. This is Farm to Fork the Innovators, where the future of the food supply chain starts with this episode. All right, Aaron, welcome to the show. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, David. It's good to join you today. My name is Aaron Cooper, and I'm owner and operator of 33 Ventures, which is a consulting company, and the beef genetic and meat industry, and Cooper family Akaushi, which is a seed stock operation. So
Cool. And just tell us a little bit about your consultancy, maybe in a couple sentences, and your Cooper family Akaushi. And I'm saying that you're going to hear me folks say that over and over again because I'm trying to pronounce it correctly.
right, you're doing good with it.
Cool.
It's both are centered around the breed Akaushi, which is a red Wagyu breed from Japan, and they are a high marbling breed of cattle, but they're not quite as progressive as the modern day Angus or Charolais in terms of growth. And so developed a herd here in the U.S. in 2016 for seed stock purposes, and now it's evolved into being a farm to chef direct terminal product, and that's pretty much where we are with that. And on the consultancy side is taking that information and experience that I've learned and gained hands-on with the Akaushi cattle and offering that service worldwide.
Cool. Yeah. And so I asked Aaron to be on here today. Obviously, beef is a very important subject for the food supply chain right now, as we've had at times record prices. Supplies are very limited. And so we're going to talk about that. But we also, this is Farm to Fork the Innovators. We're going to talk about the innovation that's occurring in beef, particularly with Cooper family Akaushi and what you see from your consultancy. So, all right. So, but before we jump into that, you sound like a busy guy. Any hobbies besides that?
We are busy.
Yeah.
It's myself and my wife, and we have two teenagers and a new 1-year-old, and so our hands are pretty full with the family matters. But the Akaushi keep us busy and tied to home on a day-to-day matter. And as our herd was growing, my consultant business, 33 Ventures, had to, the pie could only get sliced so thin in so many ways. And so it's the number of clients have came down to just allow way for more on the farm stuff of, accomplishing some of our dreams and goals of having our own and being able to take to market at what we think is the best that we can put together.
Cool. And just, can you tell us where in the country you're located, just so people can get a visual?
Yeah, if you can't, I don't want to mislead you with my West Texas accent and dialect. We are east of Austin, from Austin to Houston, along Highway 290, and that's where we reside at. We're an hour and a half drive from the coast, now the Gulf of America. And we also lease a property south of San Angelo, which is more inland, more of a semi-arid environment around San Angelo, a little town called El Dorado. And it's a larger ranch that I leased from a prior business partner's family. And been very grateful for the opportunity to run cattle in both places. It's the only way that we would be able to, get in business and stay in business, is just the limitation of land availability to run cattle on top of.
And it's expensive, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. It's, the newest numbers, and it's been like this for a while. It's you can't pay off land by just running cattle. Maybe with the way cattle prices are currently, it looks more favorable, but with interest and just land values so high, it's impossible unless you're doing something unique and different to try to justify it.
Yeah, cool. And we'll get into that in a second. So how'd you get into the cattle business?
Well, I grew up in West Texas, like I say, and my mother's family are cotton farmers, and we always had a couple cattle around as a kid growing up. But we also helped neighbors and other ranchers with day working on the weekends. My dad did, and but where I got more hands-on and a love for just cattle in general is through showing cattle, and just getting to see the different breeds and the types and kinds of cattle and whatnot. And so, as far as we can count back, fifth or so generation of having cattle. It's from one generation to the next. It's never really passed down, or there's been a gap or a start over from one generation to the next. And we with my generation, I hope or I aim to stop that and have something to pass down, built up to pass down to be a viable source of livelihood for generations to come.
Yeah, it's not an easy business.
It's not, especially after college. I started in academia, where you could rely on a check coming to your bank account at a certain time in a certain place, and everything being so consistent. And the entrepreneurial lifestyle is much different because it can be seasonal or it can be random, and multiple of the types of revenue streams that can be coming in simultaneously or none at all.
So you left West Texas and you went to Texas A&M?
Well, I first went to junior college up in Kansas.
Okay.
A small junior college called Butler Community College, and it was driven by livestock judging and the passion to be on judging teams. Livestock evaluation has always been something that's been a little bit of an ember burning inside. And when I got to college, it got to be on full throttle to see how much passion it existed there, because it's quite a competitive event. There's multiple community college and also university level schools that compete for at national level contest. And so you're evaluating 4 different species, and also graded on how well you place those classes of animals, and then also how well you're able to orally give a set of reasons on 8 of the 12 classes. And that was back in 2002 to 2004. And then in graduate school, I was a coach at the University of Nebraska. And since then, I've been served as an official at some of these contests to score the college students to determine the winners and whatnot. And so livestock judging was the only reason why I actually stayed in school. But once I got to Texas A&M, and number one, saw how beautiful the countryside is down here where I live at now, it made me want to try to find a way to live down here eventually, because having green grass and some clouds overhead and the wind not blowing all the time was a good change of pace. But when you get into those upper level classes, when I got there at A&M, it was like I finally got to the courses that I started and really wanted to get to, which were the meat science, reproduction physiology, breeding and genetics, and it's the breeding and genetics that took me through graduate school. I wasn't a fantastic student up to that point, but I like a needle finding a groove. That's exactly what was deep down in my heart and a passion of mine, where I saw myself fit into working with cattle, was on the genetic side, and that's what took me all the way through my academic path.
Yeah, and you're being humble. Right. So just to give you some expertise here on the background of Aaron, I mean, he's gone from junior college all the way to his doctorate in animal sciences from Texas A&M, right? And were you an instructor there as well?
Well, when I graduated in 2011, we were in, the global economic crisis finally hit Texas's robust economy, and there was not much out there for a specialized postgraduate degree in cattle genetics, unless you're going into sales. And so the thing to do was go into academia. And so I got on as a faculty position at Texas A&M University Commerce, which is one of the 7 system schools of A&M. And that was my academic journey and start of research and grant writing and, the rigors that come along with not only teaching and being a professor, but having a faculty role at the university level.
But it sounds like you had an itch, huh?
Yeah, you have to be able to withstand that. Academia long-term wasn't for me. I still like to be engaged with research through curiosity of just trying to understand more about what we're doing and why outcomes occur the way that they do. And now more recently of what's a better way overall of doing things to do it better than what we found it and leave it better than what we found it. And
yeah.
So yeah, it's just like anything. You got to find your itch, and God's blessed me to be able to eventually find what I wanted to do and allow me to do it on an everyday basis. And the Akaushi cattle have provided such a good means for that, because they're so much different than other breeds of cattle. We don't do things quite as the same as what other common breeds do or mainstream programs do, because we're very interested in the carcass performance of the animal at the very end, rather than just only a snapshot of growth getting to that point.
Okay, so before we jump into that, can you kind of give us a very brief tutorial, if the average listener here might be somebody in the supply chain, whether a processor, could be somebody with a restaurant or a grocery store or something like that. Can you give us kind of the walkthrough of let's call it conventional beef that we may see in our store, from calf, kind of that journey to the store?
Well, first of all, let me say that all the beef that you see, not all the beef you see in a store is born, raised, and processed in America. And hopefully, with some things moving forward within our country, that we'll be able to see where that animal was born and processed, and how it ended up, what countries as a passport, if you will, to see how it ended up on the shelves in America. And I'm totally for that. But traditionally, American cattle, are born on a farm or a ranch. And when it's time at 6 to 8 months of age to wean that calf, it is weaned and oftentimes goes to a local livestock auction market and is sold to a backgrounder or stalker operation. And that calf goes to grass and to some feed for a couple of months. Could be 3 months or could be 6 months or so, until it's time to go to a feedlot environment. And at the feedlotters, it'll stay there for 4 months to in the Wagyu industry, in our case, can stay up there for a year of age. But then it goes on to the slaughterhouse or packing industry, which is a very condensed and centralized environment, and it filters up to a couple of large corporations which send that product down to purveyors, on down to wholesale to retail distribution, and eventually gets in front of the American consumer. And so there's many different facets to the industry, but where the beef that comes in from other countries comes in. A lot of it comes in as lean beef that gets mixed with our fats and goes to the into ground beef, basically. A lot of our burgers, but other beef does come in, and in our industry, in the Wagyu industry, America is one of the largest importers of Wagyu beef in the world. Wagyu beef being a higher marbled breed of cattle that commands a higher price due to its eating quality and overall experience, with the famous beef coming from Japan, particularly the Kobe region of Japan that has produced the authentic Kobe beef. 10% of the beef that comes into America comes from Japan, and rightfully so. 48% comes from Australia. And like I say, America produces, imports as much beef on a tonnage basis as any country in the world. And we are at that's one of our main competitors, is the volume of beef coming in from Australia that could just be American produced.
So it's my understanding, Aaron, that we have a deficit of lean trim here in the United States to fulfill the hamburger grinding demand. Is that not the case? Or?
Yep. And that's where the imported beef comes in. And you're seeing most of it coming in from South America, a couple different countries down there. But, the large packers, the four main large packers that are in America, there's a large Brazilian ownership presence amongst that group of four. So you also see a Chinese ownership, just like you do in the swine industry. And so it's just like any other type of business and industries that are international based. If one producer or one businessman in one country sees a way to add value to what they're doing or what they're producing in another country, whether it be based on the currency exchange and foreign currency rate, or just taking it to a higher market or a stronger dollar or whatnot. So it's no difference in the protein trade internationally.
Thank you for that. Can you walk us through the general economics of a rancher? So the cattle herd has a tendency to cycle, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when I've covered the commodity markets for years, and what I tell clients is, where I like to look is, okay, who's making money right now? Who's not? And then what needs to change? And usually that'll kind of be the driver of shift over the next couple of years, right? And currently right now, I can't say for sure that cattle ranchers are making money because it's kind of tough, as you mentioned just a moment ago. But cattle prices have been setting records over the last 6 months or so, and rightfully so. Beef cattle supplies are limited. Beef consumption has been actually grew last year to a multi-year high. And beef consumption has been incredibly resilient. But that's not always the case, right? I mean, there are times when cattle prices are low and cattle farmers are really struggling, and beef prices might be low because of that, and consumers are benefiting, or the processor might be benefiting, right? So can you kind of walk us through the economics? Like, what are your major inputs? What is it like today, and how's that changed maybe over the last, let's call it, 5 years?
It's limited by land availability. If you don't have any land to run cattle on, you can't be in the ball game. Whether you're running cows and trying to produce calves to market, or you're buying in lightweight calves and want to run them and put some gain on them for weight gain on them for a bit, and then market them, and being able to take advantage of the marginal weight gain there. So you've got to have land. It's most cattle operators are able to make it work with cattle leases by having land to graze their cattle upon. And, one of the things that's rather than, having to own all of it and carry the note on it. And so you see producers that out west some of their land comes with some federal land that they're able to graze as well, or they're able to try to bid and compete for. But most part, it's a very tough industry to break into because you have to have land to begin. And without land, that you're just waiting. And I've seen guys wait a couple, over 5-10 years waiting for land in their region to come open to be able to run cattle on. Now, the West Texans that are exiting or tired of struggling with farming cotton are putting up fences around their cultivated land and are starting to try to get grass or produce hay and try to run wheat, cattle on wheat in the winter times. And so you see more cattle where once that land sat dormant or was dedicated to only one a crop a year. And so it's changed since COVID. COVID was a real shock to our cattle industry as a whole. And on the cow-calf side, prices were low as it was, and then COVID hit. And we were at the bottom of that cattle cycle in terms of our prices. And there was so much uncertainty going on, whether you're selling cattle at the local auction or whether you retained ownership and had your money tied up into fat cattle in the feed yard.
Yeah.
The prices just went down, and what you owned went down. At the same time, we all sat back at the and went to our grocery stores and watched the price of beef and other proteins just skyrocket. And so we knew something was up and smelt funny at that time. That it seemed like price gouging apparently was occurring, and still up for debate currently. But then you add on drought, and then another level of drought the next year, and then you just see some older producers, which were the majority of by numbers, were our cattle producers. It's a high member of our cattle producer base is just older cattle producers because you have to, on average, people that can have the resources and the land availability to run cattle. That you're not 21 years old. You're more like 51 years old when that comes available to you, and you have the resources and everything to be able to start such venture. And so the ones the producers that were over that were retirement age, that were doing this as a hobby or something to keep them going. A lot of those guys sold out during those back-to-back years of drought. And a lot of land has now become available on a positive note. And so you're seeing more land leases come available. But, a lot of land became unavailable because of during COVID, so many people were on the move, particularly in the states of Florida and Texas. The land prices went through the roof, and people came and occupied that land and wanted to have their own acreage and do their own operations, which is understandable. But there's been a lot of things that have worked against the beef cattle ranchers over the last couple of years.
So how are margins today for the beef cattle ranchers? Are they better than they were 3-4 years ago? I mean, what I'm trying to get at is there the incentive for them to expand?
There is. You're hearing less complaining now from your average beef cattle producer.
Okay, that's good news.
Than you did back then, and so you're right. We're sitting on record high prices at nearly all classes of cattle, and it's hard not complain about too many things right now. But our grain prices are moderate as well, and so feed prices have been fairly moderate as well. But fertilizer prices are still very high, and it depends on what type of operation of what your local inputs are. In West Texas, we don't even think about the fertilizer and different inputs that we use here. More on the coastal area of Texas, it has poor quality soil, and so overall across the many different beef cattle producers, on average, it's about 65% of their input cost are from feed cost. You look at that combined with your increased land values and increased interest rates, it just has been very difficult to be in the beef cattle industry. And it's The record high prices are very good. They're a shot in the arm. It's People have been, as cash heavy as they've ever been in some ways, as cattle producers, but that cash quickly leaves when you're looking at input cost, and fuel is still high as well. So you've got to find something different to do. And so the commodity business, it is what it is. It's typically a break even type of business, and you've got to find a way to be able to enjoy the lifestyle and the livelihood you like doing, but be able to afford it and entrench yourself deeper into the to the industry and the culture.
Cool. So we recently got, and I want to talk about your farm here next, but we recently got a report from the USDA on the cattle inventory, and the herd was down again, which was totally expected. And so I can tell you there are quite a few listeners who are waiting for the herd to start to build. And I guess the question is, do you think it will start to build this year? Is there enough grass? And is there enough financial incentive for the herd to build?
I don't think it's going to build quite yet. The reason being is the value of those heifer calves that need to be retained to start building the herd. They're worth so much at the local auction that the producers are enjoying the fruits of their labors and just cashing them in and taking that cash and doing something else with it. To not take that cash and sit on those females for 18 more months is waiting for them to have their first calf and then babysit them through that first calf. It's not for the faint of heart, and it requires some financial input and investment, and so that's tough for a lot of people to do, and but that's what's going to need to happen for our herd to start rebuilding, because they're not going to come from anywhere else.
Great point. Interesting point. And this is, folks, and correct me if I'm wrong, Aaron, but how can you blame a rancher for not wanting to collect that cash today when just 3-4 years ago it was a struggle just to get much cash? Is that fair?
Yeah, it's more than double the price of what they were getting, in the COVID days, and so it's just wild to think about how much these animals are worth now. And to me, they've been worth this the whole time. Like, we have always valued our cattle at this value. We've always thought they were worth this much money, and it was just, when you're in the commodity industry, you take what the price it's offered to you, and or you don't get or you don't take it at all. But we've always viewed our cattle as the top cattle in the world on a large scale basis, and that they were worth as much as anywhere around the world. And especially the cattle that have been long fed with our good U.S. grain, that beef is desired anywhere around the world that has a middle class income. And now that we're able to produce Wagyu beef, we can produce as fine a beef as you're going to find in many places. Outside the exceptions of certain regions in Japan, and but yet you're still seeing producers in the U.S. And there's one or two in Canada, and a couple people here and there around the world that are in my mind, is master class of breeders, feeders of that exquisite high-end Wagyu steak as anywhere as you're going to find in the world. So it's provided opportunities in that regard, and so we're thankful for that. But on the commodity side, when the prices get so high as like they are right now, you even have producers in niche markets such as the Wagyu programs that produce an F1 or a half-blood calf that might be Wagyu or Akaushi, and the other breed, the mother breed being an Angus, Hereford, Charolais, or whatever cross type cow that they had, on their place. They're just buying in a bull to produce that 50% Wagyu blooded calf. The prices are so high that the niche markets and those Wagyu programs can't continue to pay the premium above market prices to pay for those calves, because they'll soon go out of business for paying such expensive calves, because they've got to take and then further feed them on and then get them ready for a slaughter, and then handle that cost and expense and risk, and then et cetera, et cetera. So when prices are high like they are now, like they were back in 2014, a greater portion of our highly carcass bred cattle are going to the commodity route because prices are higher currently than they were back whenever we were getting premiums above the regular market. I say we, but producers that I consult with. And so it is a roller coaster ride, and it goes up and down every 10 years. This cycle is a little bit different. I think we're going to hold at the top and hold there for just a little bit longer. 2029 is when it's expected, when the USDA expects our cattle inventory to catch back up and our prices to relax, for lack of better terminology. They'll relax before then, but that's when they'll go on down to more normal type levels.
Yeah. So for a history lesson for you folks, the last time we had this kind of cattle cycle, beef production peaked in 2008. We did not return to 2008 beef production levels until 2018. So it takes a while. It takes a long while.
It does. And, I saw a question raised by one of my favorite follows on LinkedIn, I believe, and they were talking about the efficiency of the beef production in the United States and how there are fewer animals, but yet our beef volume or our beef that we're actually producing is increasing, and that's just been that tightening of efficiency on in every facet of the production system to be able to do that. And when you look at it from a 30,000 foot view, you sit back and say, is it really efficient though? And you need to look at things from an outsider's perspective, or just look outside the box for a bit and say, are what we're doing, is that good? And is it accomplishing what we're needing it to do? And what has changed because of all of this? And you'll find a very centralized, high growth, for the cattle perspective, a high growth animal that has been bred for a highly centralized system. And I think there is a grassroots organic type movement for a more decentralized approach that has more small farmers that are more independent regionally and locally, rather than being almost 100% dependent on a national level.
Yeah, interesting. And I think there's definitely a movement for the consumers to connect more with the origin of their food. They're not as interested in the commodity part of it anymore. They want the purpose of that food, right? The provenance.
Yeah, there's no telling what you and I have ingested into our body by certain fruits and vegetables that even if we did wash them off and wipe them off with a paper towel, there's just no telling. But
yeah. So, do you do commodity cattle on your ranch too, or just the Wagyu?
We have some crossbred type cattle as well, but they're graded up percentage blood Akaushi, and so we've got them as well.
Okay, all right. So let's jump into your farm here, or your ranch. Let's define a few terms for us. So, folks, commodity cattle would be basically choice, select, probably even prime. Is that fair?
Yep, it's the USDA's quality grade system that is awarded to carcasses that meet the certain age and maturity requirements in USDA inspected and graded plants around the country. Commodity describes the vast majority and the bulk of beef cattle that you see roadside as you're traveling along the countryside. And non-commodity or program cattle are those that are entered into certain programs that differentiate them based on their environment or how they're raised or how they're treated or how they're bred, that differentiates them from the common commodity animal.
Okay. And Wagyu stands for?
Wagyu is a term of origin that is used to put on breeds of cattle that were derived in Japan. There are 4 beef breeds of cattle that are in Japan. It's the black Wagyu, the Japanese brown, the Japanese polled, and the Japanese shorthorn. and the black Wagyu, or the Japanese black, is what we call it black Wagyu in the U.S. and around the world. And the Japanese brown, there's two strains, and we have one strain outside of Japan, and that's what's commonly referred to as Akaushi, without going into too much depth, but about the strains. But we commonly refer to them as red Wagyu or Akaushi, which is Japanese for red Wagyu, or red cow, excuse me.
Just to clear it up, the Wagyu isn't a breed of cattle. It is the origin of the cattle. Is that right?
Yep. It means Japanese beef animal, just like breeds such as the Angus, Shorthorn, Hereford, and Polled Hereford are classified as English or British breeds.
Okay.
Wagyu would be like calling them Japanese. And so Wagyu is a term of origin describing those four breeds, the beef breeds.
Okay. And so you have this background of judging cattle. Is that fair? Am I saying that correctly?
Yes, sir.
I would assume gives you a tremendous amount of expertise in these cattle, right? Did this lead you to your farm? Did your background in judging cattle lead you to wanting to have this particular cattle on your ranches?
Not necessarily. Whenever you look at the judging of cattle and showing cattle, there's a couple of breeds involved that stand the strongest, if you will. Breeds such as Angus and Charolais and Hereford. And then there's crossbred cattle that have their own category. When I left the when I left academia and got into industry, I worked for a company called Heart Brand Beef, and they're located in Texas, and they're own the founding herd, and they're the largest Akaushi producers in the world. They have thousands and thousands head of breeding cattle in their breeding herd. And they have a beef program as well, and that's very successful. And I worked there for 2 years on the breeding and genetic and sales side. And it was my first exposure to the Wagyu industry. It was my first exposure to the Akaushi breed, and I fell in love with what we were doing and the purpose of those cattle. They're a calving ease breed of cattle, which means that on the cows themselves, when they have their first calf, it needs to be out of a bull that's going to throw a more slender built, moderate sized calf at most, so that heifer, that female that hasn't had a calf yet, can have it easier. And so Akaushi and Wagyu breeds are good for that trait because they have small and more moderate sized calves. But also their marbling ability and the palatability of and the flavor of their beef, it's just more unique and intensified versus the more choice and prime level beef that you find in America. But the evaluation and the judging and sorting of the cattle are involved in the process of developing a more well-rounded animal, a better mother for your cow herd, and then ultimately what's hanging on the rail that can be utilized by the consumers. And so you take those same tactics and what you've learned in the past and apply them to just a different breed of cattle and a different, more of a non-traditional program.
Yeah. Okay. And so how did you start your ranch then?
Well, like I was describing earlier, I didn't inherit land, and I'm not from wealth. My parents were blue collar workers, and we had animals as money allowed. But it was through the grace of God and my education that positioned me to where I am now, to where I just found ways to use what I had to try to level up and get to where I was going. And so more recently, it was a consulting company, and my offering of consulting services in the Wagyu and Akaushi industries, from conception all the way to plate presentation and the way that they were cooking their burgers, around the world, learning as I went. And in some cases, from a business perspective, learning more from those that I was consulting to than they were actually learning from me. And so was blessed to be around some very influential people in my life and great mentors, just trying to help them produce better cattle and better beef. But I stepped away from Heart Brand in 2016 and started the consulting company, and I found a guy to partner up with that had some property, and we formed a herd, and we got it up and going and made it cash flow, and we um, exported our genetics, our full blood genetics, to many continents around the world. And I was able to go and follow those, first go represent the company, but also represent the genetics and try to fit where they could be the best used, and to fit the programs that the best. And was able to make have some synergy there with that, and allowed us to, number one, pay for the herd, and then number two, be able to own it and grow it. And then in 2021, it was a good time that I was able to buy my business partner's assets. His name was John Myers. He's since passed away, and forever grateful to the opportunity provided for me. It was always a tremendous business partner, and it's his ranch that I lease now from his sons. And I took over the assets and direct control of all that was involved in the Myers Cooper herd and our cattle assets in 2021. And the herd size has grown a little bit. I think our quality has been refined, but it's the brand of our genetics, what people can expect from them and what we can prove based on our carcass merit, that has really changed and evolved in those since then. And we take it day by day, and don't jump at every opportunity that comes our way. We rely on our faith to guide us, and sometimes God says not yet, but he hasn't told us no, and we're blessed with that as well. And so we're small. We don't have farm loans. We live by the Dave Ramsey approach. If we don't have money, we can't afford it, then we don't need it. That straps us financially sometimes, because those cattle eat, twice a day out there. And the cattle that we feed out for our beef program are in the front of our barns. They're under the best oak trees. They have the most pleasant scenery, and they live about as good a life as we do inside our house. At least that's what some people say. And they, but that's what is starting to pay more of our bills, and that's the way that we wanted it to, and that's what puts by their performance and the way that they look, by the way that product looks on the plate, it builds the value of our brand that's on our breeding cattle from a genetic standpoint.
So what would be the common differences between your cattle or another Akaushi, let's call it steak, right, versus a commodity steak?
Okay. And I'm there's two categories. What you'd find at the retail case that is labeled as commodity, that's just USDA choice or prime, and then like you're saying, David, an Akaushi Wagyu, or even one of our own craft fed and bred type Cooper steaks, if you will. What you're going to get at the store is going to could be any breed under the sun. Could be dairy breeds as well, which dairy breed is a very tasty cut of meat, what a lot of farmers grew up eating, and still to this day choose to have on their plate at home, and it's a good product. But nevertheless, you're going to taste a piece of meat that has minimum amounts of marbling and juiciness and flavor to it. It meets the minimum requirements to receive either a choice or a prime grade. When you taste a good Wagyu or Akaushi steak, you're going to be able to see it in a uncooked phase before it's cooked, and be able to get a pretty good idea what you're going to get just by the level of marbling that you've got there, and what cut it actually is. You're going to have quite a bit more marbling. Different Wagyu can create different experiences. Their degree of doneness, how they're cooked, the different preparation factors involved can really alter the eating experience there. But just for the general Wagyu steak, you're going to have more of a lighter, crisper flavor of fat that's lingering residually in your mouth and palate. For an Akaushi, you're going to have more of a nutty, buttery flavor with a little bit more pecan notes to that flavor and residual that's left in your mouth. The residual and the texture, it depends on on many different things. What you would find from what we're trying to raise with what we've tried to accomplish through intentional selection, getting it up to that point of beef on your plate is one thing. There's many different factors that and selection criteria that we use to get it to that point. But the actual product itself, we've been selecting for a lower melting point of the fat for some time now, and that came about through some research that I became aware of and went and participated in Western Australia. And to give just a quick snapshot of what's happening there, the fat that's marbling, that's inside the muscle, is the healthiest fat because it has the lowest melting point. The fat that's on the outside of the muscle, or the back fat of the animal that you see on the very outside, that's one of the poor, the least healthiest fats that you're going to see. Why? Because it's got a higher melting point, and that's due to the amount of double bonding that you see in terms of carbons there, and it doesn't desaturate and it doesn't break down quite as easy when you go through and cook it. Like you see the fat on the outside of the steaks, you cook it for as long as you want to. It really doesn't ever go away. It's got such a high melting point and so saturated, and that's what you're consuming, and that's what's clogging up arteries and whatnot inside of you. Whereas what we've tried to select for is a lower melting point of fat, not only the marbling, but also all of the fat of the animal, to where it has a lower melting point. With that, you see a higher oleic acid content inside that beef because it's got inside that fat, because it's got more monounsaturated fat content to it. It's got a better ratio of monounsaturated to saturated fats, and it has a lower melting point. It renders tallow easier. When you're thawing it out and you bring it up to room temperature, you can see it disappear more quickly. It turns more pale and almost tries to go to an oily state versus staying solidified in that wax fatty type of a state. And we know through research, the healthiest, lowest melting point that we have seen is at a temperature that's lower than the body temperature of the animal. And so that suggests that it's in an oily state within the muscle, not in a solid state. We don't know what all that means quite yet, but we do know it's healthier. It provides a great deal of flavor, and it renders quite well. And so and we can see these things through genomic selection. There's been some novel discoveries with a type of inheritance that can come along with desaturation of fats within the body, and the mechanisms, how that takes place over time within the animals, and what all is happening there. So, so there's different categories. You can go to find butcheries or steak places around the world and see different brands and lines of Wagyu meat that's fed, some of it's fed up to 600 days on feed, which is an awfully long time. I've seen some places that feed it for very, short time frames. So it just depends what the local market's wanting.
You seem very purposeful in your ranch and the type of cattle you're trying to raise. Why do that as opposed to doing a more commodity style cattle?
It's just worth more. There's the challenge of figuring it out and also discovering how to do what we're doing even better. But if no one's going to pay you to do something, then there's little motivation to go and do it. And I see how much money is getting spent by the consumers on higher quality beef, and then from a production standpoint, seeing where that beef is coming from and seeing that it's, a lot of it's not getting utilized in America like it should be. I know our time is coming. I know the better days are ahead of us, and the consumers, once they know that the U.S. beef is available, and the gaps that we have in our production, in our supply chains, once those get filled up and there's more direct relationships, you're going to see a celebration of the U.S. beef that we have available. consumers, like you say, want to know where it comes from, want to know the story behind it, want the peace of mind that the animal was treated fairly and properly throughout its life. And we want to show people, should be able to showcase our beef and how beautiful of a product that we can produce, not only visually, but also camera assessing it. So there's an objective analysis of percent marbling and ribeye area size that we have. But it's like a bottle of wine. What you're tasting on the inside is what is basically the story that was written of getting it to that point. Maybe it's the different types of production systems that were involved. Maybe it was the environment that the vines were in. Maybe it was the year that was in an environment that made it tougher or more rich of a flavor. But we try to look. We have learned a lot from the wine industry. And we try to tell our story as such, because what our consumers are eating and what they're tasting is a long story, and it took a lot to get to this point to be able to write that story for that animal. But we, when they, when someone talks to me about some beef they got from us, I know the animal they're talking about and its lineage from Japan and what that animal's life was. Where it was raised at, and what type of year it was, where I was at in my feeding program, what type of feed I was feeding, if I was satisfied, or what changes we'd made to the next year, or why it had a little bit more of a, not such a bright white, it had more of a yellowish look to its fat. Well, that's because everybody was out of hay that year. We only could feed the new, uncured, immature hay. That's why it has more of a yellowy and a little bit more of a gamey, so that each harvest has its own unique flavor to it, and that's what we specialize in, and that's what I help other producers be able to capture that story, let them know that, hey, every part about what you're doing is important, and try to reach their goals like that. It's we've also raised questions about raising cattle that are against the grain. The mainstream way of vaccinating cows in your breeding herd is every year, actually twice a year, of vaccinating for the things that we vaccinate for as calves, like black leg clostridial and respiratory type diseases and things like that. And I leave it up to my clients of what they choose to do, but I at least pose that question for them: is, do you think that you need to vaccinate your 13-year-old cow again this year? She's been vaccinated, I don't know, 25 plus times up to this point.
Yeah.
So I some of my clients are veterinarians, and the veterinarian that comes out and helps me with my cattle, he gets an earful of questions every time, because we personally don't vaccinate our cattle every year. We vaccinate them once as a calf, and if I think they need a second as a booster, then I do it. But one time is enough. If your cattle aren't, if that's not challenging your cattle and challenging your production that you're doing, it's no threat to you. You're seeing no adverse reactions. You're just seeing no reduction in production. Do we have to keep vaccinating our cattle? And that's not a popular thing to do or say, but I think that we're producing a better animal, and that's not reliant on something artificial to rev up their immune system or production of antibodies. And also it's, I just feel better about eating the beef that's, out of the animals that we produce. So.
Well, this is great. Well, Aaron, how do people, you mentioned earlier, farm to chef direct. How do people, can consumer order your beef, or is it just go to restaurants, or how do people get in touch with you if they want to learn more about your beef?
If you want to see more about our beef program, you can find it on our website. It's cooperakaushi.com, and it's COOPERAKAUSHI.com. And you'll see the tab that says Prophecy Craft Meats, and that's what we call our our craft meats program. We do occasionally have some Berkshire pigs on feed, and are able to offer that Berkshire pork and hand feed those animals out to their endpoint as well. So
cool. Very good. Well, congratulations, Aaron. Congratulations. I'd like to thank you for being on the show.
And we love the transparency. We love what we do. We love the way that we do it, and we're trying to get better at it as we go. And so we applaud and celebrate guys like yourself that are helping us out.
Well, thanks, Aaron. I appreciate it.
You bet.
And that brings us to the end of another insightful journey through the fields of innovation on Farm to Fork, The Innovators. It's an honor to have you listen. If you found today's episode as fascinating as we did, don't forget to share it with a friend, write a review, and hit that subscribe button so you never miss another episode. Farm to Fork is not just a podcast, it's a community of forward thinkers and change makers. Your thoughts and ideas matter to us. Reach out on social media or through our website, datumfs.com, and be a part of the ongoing conversation. As we wrap up today, remember, the future of the food supply chain is in our hands. Stay curious, stay innovative, and let's continue growing together. Until next time, this is David Maloney, signing off from Farm to Fork, The Innovators. Thank you for being a part of this community. See you in the next episode.